Robert was 48 when he married for the first time. His bride Natalie had just turned 30. Many people advised Robert against marrying her, warning him about the age difference. They said that Natalie came from a different generation with different values. However, Robert always brushed off their concerns. He couldn't understand what differences they could be talking about. Every moment spent with Natalie felt wonderful, and the fact that a young, passionate wife was waiting for him at home excited him immensely. They met in a cafe. Robert was having lunch with a business partner while Natalie was enjoying coffee with her girlfriends. Robert immediately noticed Natalie's vibrant and free-spirited personality, and he asked her out. That's how their relationship began. At first, it was a shy courtship, flowers and nighttime walks around the city. Robert felt young again and full of energy. Natalie seemed to energize him, and he felt like he could move mountains just to see her smile or hold her hand. Natalie worked in the human resources department. No matter how much Robert tried to convince her to quit her job, she refused. She didn't want to depend on him financially. In the mornings, Robert would watch as she got ready for work, admiring her tan, incredibly attractive body. "Yesterday I interviewed some candidates for our team," Natalie said as she fastened the button on her jeans. "Someone should start working today." Robert loved how she talked about her job. She spoke about it with such passion and interest. "Let's go out tonight," he suggested. "That's a good idea, dear," Natalie replied, kissing her husband before heading off to work. In the evening, Robert picked her up and they went to a restaurant. They often went out together, and Robert noticed the disapproving looks people cast their way, but he was proud of his wife's youth and charm. "How was your day? Did they hire a new employee?" Robert asked. Just then their main course arrived, steaming with an appetizing aroma. "Yes, actually 2, Ryan and Katie," Natalie replied. Their conversation flowed easily as usual. They enjoyed their time together, delicious food, beautiful live music. Beneath the table, Robert gently stroked his wife's leg, and she looked at him with a tipsy smile on her lips. Over the next few months, Robert noticed changes in his wife's behavior. She became more tender and affectionate. In the evenings, she cooked at home more often instead of suggesting they go out. One evening, Robert jokingly asked her if she had taken a lover. "Natalie, it's like you're atoning for sins," he said, enjoying his tea after a hearty dinner. His wife just shrugged. "Robert, stop it. Or don't you like it?" she teased, smiling. "Silly, I'm very happy." He approached her, pulled her close, and kissed her. However, Natalie's phone was constantly buzzing with messages. She read them while turning the screen away from Robert, something she had never done before. When Robert asked about it, she claimed that the messages were work-related, that they were swamped and she needed to be available at all times. One evening, Natalie was staying late at work. Robert decided to pick her up, sending her a short text, "Be there soon." Natalie read the message but didn't reply. Robert hurried to get to her, waiting downstairs a little distance from the office entrance. Finally, the doors opened and 2 people emerged. Natalie and a young man who Robert would describe as a boy. They shared a brief hug goodbye, both smiling brightly. Robert grew nervous and honked the horn briefly. He watched his wife's reaction as she turned and waved at him, but a wave of anxiety had already settled in Robert's chest. "Who was that?" he asked when his wife got into the car. "A colleague," Natalie replied. "I told you about Ryan," Natalie said softly. "We recently hired him as an intern." Robert nodded. "You've become friends with him?" "Yes, he's a bit awkward in the company. He's still young. Only 19, can you imagine?" Natalie giggled. Robert relaxed a bit, feeling reassured by his wife's reaction to the young man's age. He pushed aside the nagging thoughts that had been painting vivid images of infidelity in his mind. Robert had always had an overactive imagination, and now it was clearly not helping him. But over time, Natalie began staying late at work more often. Robert couldn't always pick her up, but when he did, he noticed that Natalie and Ryan always left the office together. This irritated him immensely, but he tried not to mention it to her. Once, his suspicions led to a big argument, and Natalie had stormed off, staying at a hotel for a week. Robert couldn't risk that happening again, so he preferred to keep his feelings to himself. One summer evening, Robert went to pick up Natalie, who was working late again. He waited for her in the car downstairs for a long time. He sent her several messages, but she hadn't even read them. Growing increasingly anxious, Robert decided to go up to her office. He saw that the light was still on. Climbing the stairs to the 3rd floor, Robert grew more nervous with each step. As it turned out, he had every reason to be. His heart pounded as he stepped into the hallway on the 3rd floor. The door to his wife's office was slightly ajar. It was quiet, but as he listened closely, Robert could hear muffled sounds and soft murmurs. Suddenly, he pushed the door open and saw his wife kneeling in front of that same young man. Everything became clear in an instant. The young man's pants were down, and Natalie was sitting in front of him topless. Ryan, not expecting Robert, tried to pull his pants up as quickly as possible. Natalie remained seated on the floor, not meeting Robert's eyes, only covering her exposed chest with her hands. Robert crossed the room in one swift motion and grabbed Ryan by the collar. The young man whimpered in fear. Robert raised his hand as if to strike, but Ryan burst into tears, and Robert hesitated. Seeing the fear in the young man's eyes, Robert let him go. Ryan, sensing freedom, darted out of the room, his hurried footsteps echoing down the stairs. "What's wrong, Natalie?" Robert asked, his voice trembling. "You had everything." "I don't know," Natalie replied, tears streaming down her cheeks. "It was like an obsession. I kept thinking about him," she sobbed, her shoulders shaking. "Robbie, forgive me." She threw herself at him, clinging to his neck. Robert hugged her tightly, both of them crying from the overwhelming emotions. Natalie out of shame, Robert from the pain and betrayal. His wife kissed his cheeks, whispering, "Forgive me. Please forgive me." Robert tried to forgive her, but they lived together for another 6 months, enduring constant arguments. In truth, Robert couldn't forget the betrayal. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that image of his wife on her knees and Ryan with his pants down. Finally, exhausted by the emotional weight, Robert asked Natalie to move out and filed for divorce. In his youth, Robert had dreamed about buying a big dog, getting a nice car, and going on a journey. He realized that now was the perfect time to do it. The wounds from his broken marriage hadn't healed, and he knew it was unlikely that he would pursue new relationships anytime soon. After their final separation, Natalie continued working at the same company for a while before moving to another city. There, she entered into a second marriage, which also ended in divorce despite the birth of a child. Later, she briefly got back together with Ryan, who had followed her to the new city, but their relationship fell apart before it could truly begin. As painful as it was to admit, Robert came to realize that Natalie ended up alone. Justice was evident. She had betrayed someone who had loved her deeply, and fate had decided she no longer deserved such love.